Hi everyone, it's Will here. So welcome to our podcast. So this week we've got a really interesting guest in. So we've got Paul. So Paul is our team in-house physio. He's been with us for 18 months now, and as soon as he expressed interest in working with us, I was over the moon because this guy knows his stuff and is seriously well respected in the industry. So we're going to have a good chat today. But over to you, Paul. So just give, for people who don't know you, a bit of an intro.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Happy to be here. So yeah, my name's Paul Coker. I'm a physio down in Cornwall. I run a private practice called Move Physiotherapy, where we deal with sort of all kinds of everything, really. So you're sort of everyday man on the street, sort of older and arthritic conditions, lots of back and neck and occupational stuff. And then we sort of do a small sideline in elite athlete intensive treatment and rehabilitation as well. So that's sort of what takes up my time. And then, yes, been 10 with 18 months. As I said to you when I met you, I've been waiting for this product for the best part of a decade, because what it allows us to do is to actually get treatment keeping up with our advancing understanding that really hands-on work is more about affecting the nervous system than it is about sort of adjusting the architecture of the body's structure. And TEND is gentle enough and variable enough and precise enough to do that job beautifully.
Cool. So we're going to dig into that a bit more. But one thing I think, you talk about a small sideline, you're doing yourself down. We have world champions, we have Olympic athletes, we have world record holders, and we've got Red Bull athletes. So you do yourself down, Paul.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go back to this. So what I'm going to ask a question now. What is pain?
Okay. As best we understand it, pain is a primal sensation. So we really want to think of that as going alongside things like fear and thirst and hunger. It is essentially part of our body's messaging system, and it's a reflection of threat. So I'm paraphrasing slightly, but the current definition is that it's a primal sensation that is a real-time reflection of your brain's opinion on the amount of threat you as an organism are under from any given input. So you have to pick at this a little bit straight away. Pain exists in the kind of fuzzy hinterland that consciousness does. You need a brain and you need a body in order to be awake and present. A brain in a jar would not work. It requires those visceral inputs from the body in order to have this emergent thing that we call consciousness. And then pain is a message within that system that doesn't reflect damage. Damage and pain often go together, like rolling your ankle or getting punched in the face. But there are lots of times where damage does occur and there is threat to the tissue and the system that the nervous system isn't able to pick up. And then there are other situations where the inputs coming from the body are relatively ordinary, but through kind of repeated experience of being in pain, the nervous system gets really good at producing that pain signal. So then we can end up in a situation where there's no real actual threat to tissue, but there is a perception of threat to tissue by the rest of the nervous system. And that's all it takes for there to be pain, is activation of a peripheral nociceptor, the end of a nerve ending with a sensor on it, which might be embedded in your skin or it might be embedded in a muscle, but everything that you know about your body traveled there through the nervous system. So pain is always neural. Pain is about how much threat your brain thinks you are under as an organism, and it's not tied directly to the amount of tissue damage that you're under.
So we could almost say you could have someone who, which I guess is the sort of pain that I understand, has a burning sensation in their Achilles because they have, they've either micro tear or they've got a problem in their Achilles, and that's the tissue damage. But then you could have someone that's been, working, I'm going to use a bad example here, but working at a desk for 20 years and it just is like, I've got a sore neck, and has almost persuaded themselves, and the brain is so used to having a sore neck that there may not be any physical damage in there, but they're just so used to just doing this for 20 years that they're like, this is sore. That kind of the sort of two extreme camps that we're sitting in.
But even then, you go, right, what was your basic example of tissue damage? Is a burning sensation in a piece of well, burning's heat, right?
Yeah.
It feels like that when you eat a chili or get an inflamed tendon, because they're biochemical activations of your threat system, not physical. So when your tendon thickens or becomes overworked, it's the inflammation that's actually triggering the activation on the end of the nerve. And I think there is a swing too far in that wish to consider the brain and the sort of wider environment and the social element of being a human being, that we start to convince ourselves that pain can exist simply through kind of feeling down, not moving enough, and worrying about the pain that you used to have. And we don't have a lot of evidence really that pain as a phenomenon exists without the activation of something in the tissue. Now, the issue in your example of somebody who's had neck pain from 20 years from sitting at a computer is that those nerve endings that are involved in that pain are now really good at producing that pain. So it doesn't take much activation of those nerve endings, but it does take activation of those nerve endings in your tissue. It is essentially technically true to say that pain is an output of the brain, because nociception, the threat signal traveling up the nervous system to the brain to be analyzed for meaning, isn't conscious. You can't feel that. So that's nociception traveling up, and then pain is essentially a conscious experience that you have if the environment is right when that signal occurs.
And then, so you were talking earlier about how you've been waiting for 10 years for 10 to come along, because of the advancements in how we understand our brains and how we understand our nervous system. So could you just dig in a bit more into that and sort of what are these advancements? What is the kind of the cutting edge understanding? What are the new developments? So for us laymen can understand a bit more.
And if we just stick to a really simple example, like why does it feel better when somebody rubs your leg, right? So you've got like a tight calf or a sore knee and you go and have some soft tissue work. Just simple hands-on human to human contact, rubbing it around a bit, wiggling some bits and doing things like that. And the history is to provide mechanical explanations about how that has changed you as a kind of architectural machine. So you might be told that you've had toxins drained from the region or fluid pushed away, and they might be true because those kind of wetter elements of our body are probably more malleable. But a lot of people will also be told that they've had knots removed from their muscles. Well, muscles don't get knots in them. That's a way of explaining the feeling. It's not a biological reality. And then people are told they've had their fascia lengthened and released and their scar tissue broken down. And they were good ideas about trying to explain how touching and hands-on work makes people feel better. But they are outmoded, outdated, and disproven, right? We now know all those things to be incorrect. You can't deform the human body with the force of two hands. It's just not physically possible.
So why does it feel nice then?
Because it makes your brain feel safer. It lowers threat by increasing accuracy. The real conversation going on is between the so if I'm the therapist treating, it's the patient on the bed's nerves in their legs getting much better represented inside that rest of that person's nervous system. And then by touching, we are creating an environment where the nervous system can recalibrate. So some nerve endings won't be feeling enough and they'll wake up, and other nerve endings are feeling far too much and being dramatic, and they'll calm down through kind of slow and gentle pressure. So the truth about when we make things feel better is essentially we have given the brain a more detailed, accurate, and up-to-date map of that body area by activation of nerve endings in the region. And that's the main reason any treatment works, right? Whether it's being cracked by a chiro or having your like craniosacral rhythms reset by an osteopath, they are bad models to explain good inputs. One human doing hands-on work on another is really, really useful, and because it's creating this kind of positive sensory loop of increasing accuracy, reducing error and threat and misinformation within your system. So yeah, that's how I think about it. It's like downloading an update.
Yeah, but I mean that makes total sense. So it's basically just like
a really short version, right? Yeah.
It's like a reset. It's like here, this is recalibrating.
Recalibration and update, not a reset. I really don't think we can reset anything in a human body. If we understand anything about our nervous system, that it makes its decisions based on past experience. Yeah. So I think we need to be careful about those sort of over dramatic ideas of do this drill and you'll reset your vagus nerve, do this and reset your visual. You can't reset anything. We are both victims and the profiteers of our past experience. That's how humans work.
And so how does Tend then fit into this? Why is this thing? Why are you so excited that you're working with this product?
Well, because like if I go like this, I activate a certain number of mechanoreceptors that are sensitive to those kind of pressures. If I add vibration to that, then I'm getting basically all the mechanostimulation benefits of pushing and touching with my finger, but I've now got a whole other bunch of nerve endings being activated through vibration. And vibration is really, really important. It's kind of that part of that base level sensation. We don't think about this enough, but our skin is the borderland between the external universe, which you can sense and infer things about, and your internal body that you can actually experience, right? But your skin is this border between those two universes of what is out there and what you can feel from inside. And so what's happening right on the skin is really important. And by using vibration, it becomes very, very apparent where you are regionally hypersensitive. So your nerve ending feels a lot for not very much. And everybody who uses a Tend gets at least one or two surprises, right? So if you've got tennis elbow, the first place you're going to go and dig in is right where your tennis elbow. Well, that feels good. But the lovely thing about Tend is it allows people to explore out and realize that actually there's a spot of pain right in the middle of the muscle belly as well. And the tenderness doesn't stop where their perception of pain stops. It actually goes further up the arm. So Tend is a tool that allows people to work out what's going on for themselves and then help to recalibrate that area in a super intuitive way. And it's simply sort of 2 for 1. We're getting all the benefits of touching and rubbing, but we're adding this extra layer of stimulation of the nervous system through vibration.
And why couldn't you just use, like, say, a Theragun massage gun to do that?
Because threat is threat. Right? So like things that feel like too much are too much. So like I don't go for, elbow drops into people's backsides or neck cracks that make them kind of see taste colors, right? Like those kind of extreme ends of treatment that feel really bad are sort of tapping into our kind of dopamine pathways of short-term relief, but you don't make something that's wet dry by getting it wetter, right? Like, and if you're in pain, doing things that really activate lots of regional pain in that area aren't useful. So big massage guns are great for things like tight calves after exercise, kind of pre and post workout sort of activation. They have a place for that. But for proper pain, for people who've experienced months or years of constant or recurrent pain, they'll say the same thing over and over again. I can't go near it with that. It's far too sensitive to use that. We intuitively know to protect that area of the nervous system that's already sensitive. And when it gets an input that's too much, it just makes it feel worse, right? So more isn't more. The right dose is the right dose. And Tend, for so many people, allows them to experience neural activation in the sensitized region without experiencing threat at the same time. And that's niche, but massively powerful. And for most people with chronic pain, what they don't understand enough is their pain is very real, but the threat is only perceived. And so Tend is a way of persuading their own nervous system that feeling stuff in that area is safe.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's it. Whenever I talk to you, I'm always just blown away. Your knowledge is next level. And because your knowledge is next level, leads me into you work with some pretty interesting people. So we're going to talk about two cases now that you've been working on.
Yes.
So we've got Sam Sill, who's a TPB windsurfer, and we've also got Lucas Skinner, who is junior world champion surfer, absolute gun on a surfboard. And they've both had two injuries that you've been working on. But how do you approach working with these guys, say, compared to your man on the street? Is the approach different? Are the demands different? Thinking about how you do your role.
Yeah, it's different and it's the same. The basic underlying principles that I use for everyone are the same, right? That is, we have to basically make your system as accurate as possible. So to do that, you're going to have full mobility in your joints. You're going to have great kind of flexibility, mobility, and strength in each region of your body. And then you're going to need to be able to use all those for kind of complicated, adaptable patterns. And with everyone, I look at their neurosensory kit as well. So how well can you move your eyeballs? How well do your inner ears function? Where in your body does your nervous system display tension? So that kind of first process of kind of cleaning up a human and getting to the sort of starting line of being able to get fit and back to movement again is basically the same for everyone. The difference with the elite athletes is basically their time's less of an issue, right? So I get more of it. I get to see them more. I get to see them for longer, and I can ask them to do much more homework for me than I can, like Joe Bloggs around the corner who works in an office and plays pickleball at the weekend or whatever. But I am we're all humans, right? And we all run on the same basic blueprint. So yes, it is just the normal model that I use, I guess, but dialed up in terms of volume and intensity. And then things get pushed further. But, there's so many amazing weekend warriors out there who probably in certain elements of fitness and performance will beat the pants off those international athletes that you talk about. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going on a tangent here, but I'm a great believer in, like, when it comes to those guys, is the mental strength. Is the ability to put yourself in difficult situations physically. But the one I heard about, which I found fascinating, is like, what do Roger Federer and Michael Jordan have in common? And the thing that they have in common is they have the ability to absolutely forget everything that's happened before and everything that's going to happen, and drill it down to this 1 second. So when they're it's match point and Federer is going to lose the Wimbledon title, most people would be like, fuck, it's match point. Like, what's going to happen? And he's not thinking about that. He's like, all I've got to do is just hit the ball and get it to the other side. And he's not thinking, what's this shot coming up next? What's this? It's just that. And the same, Michael Jordan's not thinking, I'm 10 points down. How am I going to hit this? It's just this ability to come absolutely back into the moment.
And they're certainly mentally tough kind of characters, but equally, I think what you don't see is what Federer's like the morning after tweaking his knee, or those kind of. I think they're all likely to have those very highs and lows. So like, injuries mean a huge amount to these people. And so there is a big crash when these things first happen. They are used to training at a really high level, feeling amazing. And then when that gets taken away by pain or injury, it's pretty tough. And so dealing with athletes is a lot about kind of trying to keep them in that positive headspace, help see the way out. I think that my observation really over the years working with elite athletes is they're not better than the mortals like you and I.
Yeah.
They are sort of wired differently, right? I think probably that super accurate connection between their head and their body is the thing that separates so many of them from the rest of us, like hopeless idiots. That's where I am, basically. I love sport, but like, I'm quite good at several things and not really good at anything, right? And it is less terrifying to sort of gap jump 60 foot on a mountain bike when you're when what you see is really what's there, and what you feel is absolutely real time, and there's no error within that system. So I think, and like, Lucas this winter famously kind of went to Hawaii on a sore back door, paddled out on like a 10-foot day and got the barrel of the day at 17 years old. That fearlessness that you talk about is absolutely. But I talk about that lots with people who are stuck in pain, because actually in an attempt to address pain, what happens to so many people psychologically and neurologically is they get dragged away from exactly what you were talking about, which is that total focus on what you're doing. The body is a tool to get the job done, right? So when Lucas drops into that wave, he is not thinking about whether his big toe is activated or his glutes are fired up or his deep abdominal muscles are engaged. He's just like, go away, right? It's all sensory. It's all task orientated. And I think that's an important lesson for us all to learn, is we should aspire to be like them, which is to have our body that can do whatever we need it to do, and then put it to work in a completely thoughtless and fearless manner. And actually, if you look a lot of advice around things like back pain, sit up straight, consider deeply muscles that you'd never even heard of before you hurt your back. And now you have to think about them every time you want to reach for a cup of coffee or sneeze, right? That does not lower threat for anyone, and it's not necessary. So we have these bad paradigms of treatment that are not only out of date and stuck in that old mechanical model, but they're actually piling a load of psychological stress onto people who are trying to escape pain, and people end up not able to see the wood from the trees. And they start believing that, yes, those elite athletes are doing all those things that they're being coached to do while they're doing sports. And I meet them, I treat them, I know they're not doing any of it.
Yeah, what you're almost sort of saying, it's like you're causing unnecessary stress by saying, if you're not doing this absolutely perfectly, then people start thinking, I didn't do this, it's going to get worse, it's going to get worse.
Your brain is a better storage device than it is a processing device, right? So the limit to human performance is essentially moment by moment processing. So free your bandwidth, people. Stop thinking about pain you used to have. Stop doing weird things that are definitely making movement slower and less natural and efficient, because that will never move you towards that goal of moving like those people who we all look up to and admire. So less thought, more just do, right? Like, but that requires a body that's been trained in a way that allows it to do all those things, right? Because if you spend your life trying to avoid lumbar flexion and basically never relaxing your spine, well, probably the moment that you do that, something bad's going to happen, right? So you have to have had training that reflects that thoughtless, fearless idea, so that we are well prepared for whatever the environment and the task throws at us.
And then going back to what we were saying about when you get an elite athlete, you need to make sure that everything's functioning well. And I want to dig in a little bit on Sam, and particularly his inner ear and his balance, because concussion is what we're dealing with. And some people hopefully will have seen the video of Sam using Tend in his ear. For those of you who haven't, will hopefully be a link somewhere here. It will appear magically. So they can have a look.
What's happening there basically is he's tipping his head backwards and losing his balance.
Yeah.
And when you tip your head backwards, multiple things happen, but one is that you stimulate the inner ear canals at the back, and if they are accurate, then they tell your brain in real time that it has moved. Your inner ear is, hang on, like that. There's an inner ear, right?
Yeah.
Inside your inner ear are three little tubes that represent essentially an X, Y, and Z axis of movement. They are like hollow loops filled with fluid with hair cells that stick up into them. When your head turns left, right, up, down, wherever it moves, fluid swishes around inside this system and sort of knocks the hair cells over, and then that is like a rate sensor that from which you infer what's happening balance wise. And so then that system's directly wired to the muscles on the back of your body, so your back chain and extensors, glutes, calf, all that stuff is directly wired into your inner ear to make postural adjustments so we don't fall over too often. And when that system doesn't work well, people will be able to balance with their head in the middle. As soon as the head moves, they'll lose their balance. And that's what's happening in the video. And then all Sam does to kind of get some local activation is use vibration in the external part of the ear, because that the ear has one nerve that does balance and hearing. So if we stimulate the ear, we stimulate the nerve, and if we stimulate the nerve, his brain can make a better job of interpreting a signal which is slightly faulty due to the concussion injury that he'd had.
I guess it's going back to that point of recalibration.
Absolutely.
You're just using the vibration to recalibrate.
Boosting a signal there. And
Yeah.
then he's done lots of work on these kind of exercises, which integrate hand-eye, neck, inner ear coordination. And that allows us to kind of give a long-term fix. But where things like vibration to the ear can become so powerful is just to convince people that this neurosensory model is actually true, right? And anybody can try it. Work out which leg you don't stand so well on, and you might need to shut your eyes or tip your head to kind of stress your system. But then do the exact same thing with a tend somewhere near either the back of the ear, the underside of the jaw, or in the ear itself. That's all close enough to create a regional sensory activation of the nerves and essentially just boost signals. So it's the old maxim of what wires together fires together. And so we're just recruiting a boost through healthy nerve endings to help out the one that's stressed and in recovery. But the interesting thing about the inner ear system is it's incredibly good at compensating for itself. So if I throw my head back, the activation is in the right posterior canal here, but there's an equal and opposite inhibition in the anterior canal here. So even if this packs up, doesn't work, gets completely busted in some way, shape or form, your brain will still know where your head is, but it's a less accurate version of it. And that doesn't necessarily feel like dizzy or seasick or anything like that. What that often comes out as is weird tightness within the body, because the brain needs more information. So it tenses up muscles in order to use nerve ending sensors in your body to gain more proprioceptive information to make up for what it's lost in the brain. And that's exactly what we've seen kind of come and go over several months with Sam with a kind of extended post-concussion stuff is even an athlete like that with an amazing insight to what's happened still is, yeah, but just rub the muscle, right? So they're very much those similar conversations, whether it's like Doris from down the road or Olympic level athletes. There's still a lot of that need to attend to sore bits, but there is also a need to be able to pick below the surface and see how our compromises in software, sensation, perception, those kind of things are actually what lead to so many of those more long-standing, recurrent, treatment-resistant aches and pains that people have. The missing link is our neurosensory integration, right? If somebody's in pain, the leap is there's a broken piece of body. There is absolutely no need to assume that. If we take a threat model, almost the most likely thing is there's a compromise to something neurological if it hasn't healed, because you, a human being, comes with an internal system for healing just about anything that can go wrong with the musculoskeletal system. So fractures left unattended don't just stay fractured, they do heal in some way, shape or form. Muscles that tear don't need fixing, right? So that sort of model of like broken needs fixing, we can update that with an idea that really what we just need to do is find places where your accuracy is low and improve that accuracy there in your vestibular system, and improve your, I don't know, something weird like your tolerance of expiration breath hold over there, and that will help. And then maybe your eyeballs are a little bit weak to go up, and each one of those is a little threat that's sitting in the system. And we said at the beginning, threat was a perception. So we've got to think, you've got the size of the problem, and then you've got the size of the organism, or the robustness of the organism. And the thing to understand about a lot of flare-ups in pain that seem irrational is the injury is the same. What's happened is you have shrunk around it. You've got too tired, or you've knackered your visual system by driving 900 miles at night in a weekend, and then you wake up with a weird neck and you go, oh, I must have slept funny.
What you've just stressed your entire body.
Crap out of a neurosensory system. And so many people watching this night now are having a light bulb moment because they go, oh my God, Like you sit at your computer and you get sore, you eat your dinner and you don't get sore, right? Neurologically, they're different. Biomechanically, they're the same. Anybody whose worst thing is just being in a single position, there is probably some kind of sensory inaccuracy that's feeding the muscular niggles that you're trying so hard to beat. Because broken legs feel better when you stop and put them up than when you run around and jump on them, right? Like, so lots of pain goes the other way. I feel great when I go for a run, but I hobble down the stairs like an old man the next day.
Yeah.
It's not broken hardware. That the more you stress hardware, the worse it gets. And there are lots of people out there who go, no, actually, like, so an arthritic knee or hip, basically, the more you walk and stand on it in a day, the more achy and sore it's going to be. There is a relationship between the load and the pain. But for a lot of people, their worst activities are things like driving, using a computer, being on their phone. And they are more tasks of vision and accuracy than they are of muscles, ligaments, those kind of things.
Yeah, and I guess being sedentary as well, because I know that you're a big advocate of that, is that we are designed to move.
That's the thing. Yeah. I cannot crack your neck or tend your muscles out of an 80-hour week, a chronic sleep deprivation picture, and a terrible diet, right? Like, a healthy organism heals easily, an unhealthy organism just manages to survive to each sunset. And so if you've tried every treatment in the book, you need to zoom even further out and go, which one of these three don't you do? Get enough sleep, get enough water, eat a good enough diet, right? Because there are three biggest levers that we can pull around recovery. And when you talk about the difference between everyday athletes and the elites, I interfere much more with the elites on things like what time they go to bed and how much water they drink, because if you want to be at your maximum, you have to be an A1 in all of these systems. But that's the kind of the health of the organism around the problem. If you've got a bit of a wear and tear pattern on one side of your back, but the pain comes and goes from it, understand that the bit in your back is basically the same every day and slowly getting worse. But the pain doesn't have to, because it's about the amount of threat, tension, irritation, sensitivity that brings on, and how robust you are around about it. So if you're fitter, if you're stronger, if you've got a better heart and lungs cardiovascular engine, then those threats will matter less, because your brain registers them and goes, yeah, but I've still got loads of capacity left. So we've got the bubble of the pain can change, and then the size of you and the robustness of you around about it can change. So you got the bit, and then you've got the organism. And whenever we get worse, we tend to assume our bit has got worse, whereas actually a lot of the time, if you analyze it, you go, no, the organism was really stressed. So lots of people who have acute low back pain only ever have it at the end of something very stressful, or the opposite. Some people will get it every time, like teachers at the end of term, suddenly the first week of term they spend with back pain every time. So stress response kind of coming out through the body. So yeah, we are fearsomely complex, and when it comes to being resistant to pain, we need to think about being fit in every way, and that's those big things like food, water, but it's also things like how well do you see? Are you wearing the right kind of visual equipment for the task you're doing? Stupid things that people do that just increase threat and reduce accuracy all the time. Wearing rubbish shoes that completely cut your feet off from the ground. That's a massive sort of sensory swipe we take at our system every morning when we get out of bed. Put shoes and cushion socks, shoes and cushion socks, socks and cushion shoes.
Yeah, because I mean, I definitely saw somewhere that and again, this is just me pulling something random out of the back of my brain, so it could be completely wrong, but that no one really used to get tendinopathy or tendinitis in their Achilles until
everything was better in the olden days. Arguments.
Yeah. But I mean, is that not? Is there?
I don't think we have enough accuracy on data. Yeah. And what we do know is if chronic pain is now becoming the most expensive curable thing in the world, we are failing, right? Chronic pain, despite more investment every year, becomes more common and more disabling, and having a bigger impact on both people's lives and society at large. So there is, I think, a definite point that more and more people are struggling to feel well on a daily basis. But that's not just about injuries and tendinopathies. That's more about the fact that people now are chronically sedentary and chronically overweight and eat a diet that's ultra processed, and they are incompatible with being a healthy Homo sapien.
Well, sorry, just going back to that video that you posted a while ago. So we are designed to move forward. Like, so you were saying it's not, people don't have to go and run 10K every day, but they need to be moving.
Sam's a great example of this, right? So he got caught short, basically, had a sort of hip impingement issue in a couple of years before the Olympics, and basically sort of, and as part of managing that, just moved away from running-based activities and more towards things like cycling that didn't know the hip. But then when he got a concussion, its vestibular system really struggled, and at least some of that is probably attributed to the fact that he hadn't been doing this primal athletic task of plentiful locomotion, right? That is what we are for. It is why you and I are shaped the way we are. There are more adaptations in the human body for locomotion than there are for just about any other physical task. A human being can walk a mile on like one finger of a classic Kit Kat, right? Like it's just a few calories, and a chimp by the same comparison can cover just a few 100 meters for the same amount of energy. So we are fantastically adapted and efficient at locomotion. And then it works in a kind of positive loop, right? Because locomotion activates our visual system, our vestibular system, our proprioceptive, and that all kind of pulls together into balance. So the runner's high really is about a bunch of systems that all agree with each other at a moment in time, and that feels really good because we have really low threat, so we kind of get that like euphoric day. But it is that walking and running should be everybody's top priority movements, because they are our movement blueprint. They are our default. They are the only thing we can beat the rest of nature. It's not quite true. There is another physical task that human beings are better at. No equipment required. So quick pop quiz, can you work it out? We are the most efficient locomotors on the planet, and we can do one other thing with our body that nothing else can do. You've got 10 seconds to answer.
I'm going to say, what do we do too much of? Eating.
No, so maybe we don't do enough of it. It is the action of throwing with the upper limb. Stretch shortening cycle, right? So we load our shoulder tendons the same way we load our Achilles tendon in walking, and that's completely unique to human beings, and probably played a key part in our ability to hunt, right? Ability to throw a projectile, which is why hand-eye coordination is something that I will die on the hill that is probably the most important thing that people should train that they don't train, is things that amount to better hand-eye coordination. And people just put up with their whole life with being totally clumsy, and it's needless, because you can recalibrate those systems really quickly, and that then, because it's a sort of primal task like locomotion, it just brings about untold benefits to the body that we can't ever put our fingers on. But I'm an obsessive pesterer of patients to get better at walking, to think more about it, to take more pride in their locomotion, right? And the challenge is to find somebody who's walking optimally, that is looking where they're going, not got huge amounts of technology on their feet, and both arms are swinging in beautiful symmetry with what the legs are doing. It's become a rare event, right? We've always got a backpack or a handbag on our shoulder, or a phone in our hand, or a dog on a lead, and they all make walking less good than it could be if we just gave a bit more of a crap about how well we did it. Like, people go to CrossFit and analyze their form for hours on video afterwards, and then they hobble in there with one leg that goes round in a circle and one hip that bounces up and down when they walk. And you go, you're focusing on the wrong thing here, right? Like, you do enough lifts in a week to cause the problem, but you definitely do enough steps, right? So we're all movers, we're all locomotors, and we should all have arms that can throw.
And just going back to your balance training, again, we're going to have a shameless plug somewhere down here. Anyone, I spent a week with Paul at a trade show in New Orleans, and it's fascinating doing these exercises every day, and I immediately saw results. So again, hopefully the technology wizards will insert some kind of link here, so people will be able to go and see those exercises you recommend, because they're really easy. Anyone can do them at home. It takes like less than a minute, a couple of minutes a day, and huge benefits.
We can get a link up for this one as well, but within the next I'm going to say couple of months. I've nearly finished filming an online course, which is basically just Unbroken. It is a guide to fixing yourself through neurosensory integration. So for people who have, some of this has resonated with, then that's a way that you're essentially able to kind of take yourself through a bunch of screening processes and work out which types of drills are going to give you the best bang for your buck. Because movement is the fix, people. We don't need technology. We don't all need to be going on shockwave and having stem cells injected into us and stuff like this. Most aches and pains just need us to get healthy enough to get moving, and then the movement will kind of get things going themselves. But yeah, the type of movement we work on needs to be the right thing for the kind of problem we've got. And if you've got a pain issue that really comes out of a dodgy inner ear or a lazy eyeball, no amount of stretching your shoulder or strengthening the muscles is actually going to move the dial. But you do this for a couple of weeks and your brain goes, that's what I was after, and now I feel much better, right? So that's kind of what dragged me into it, was me failing to respond to conventional physiotherapy. And then basically I'm a lazy human being who wants to get things done as quickly as possible. And if you want to get out of pain and back to movement as quickly as possible, I promise you neurosensory integration will take you less grit and work than kind of deadlifting and yogaing your way out of problems.
That is perfect. So I'm going to just stop it there, because I think that's perfect time to finish. And also, I know that you have a world record surfer coming into the studio quite soon. But
I don't think we're allowed to talk about that one. Another elite waterman. Yes.
But anyway, but thanks so much for your time. And as ever, it's I love talking to you about this kind of stuff because it's fascinating. And we will definitely get a link to your course on there, because having done it myself, anyone watching this, just do it. Right? You benefit straight.
I mean, wait, people, if you end up being that kind of like champion of it, you go, people, you've really got to try this, right? Like it feels too easy.
Yeah.
But yes, one of my more coherent ramblings, Will. So yeah, get me up early. Maybe that's
cool. All right. Thanks, Paul. We'll see you soon.
No worries. Take it easy. Thanks. Bye.